Man Up, a program dedicated to inspiring and helping men live lives of heroic virtue. And now, it's time to Man Up.
Welcome to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are broadcasting on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I am Joe Stopulos, and today we are on part 4 of our exploration of the work, The Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. Let us start in prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our defense against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. This has been a great thing for me. So selfishly, I've enjoyed this series quite a bit. As I mentioned, the first time I read through this book, it was really just trying to get a grasp of what this book is about. And it has been awesome for me to go, take that and distill it down from the 250 pages to kind of my notes that I made on it. And now, being able to go back through it again, I hope, knock on wood, this is something I continue doing the rest of my life, because it has been very fruitful for me to continue this, to continue diving deeper into this work. There's so much fruit of it. And again, I think if I were to go back through and read it already, this is 6 months later, probably maybe a little longer than that, from the first time I read it, that I would get something different out of it already. And then also, the truths are timeless, right? While some of the analogies could use some updating, unless you're a beekeeper, a lot of them still stick. Really, with even today's what we're talking about today in today's world, a lot of the analogies still hit. One of the things I wanted to totally side note here, but it came up prior to me jumping on the air, which is to say a stat I just saw. And it was kind of updated from 2020. It's nothing too new, but it was enough for me to jump off on this real quick, which is it was the out-of-wedlock births as a share of total births in the United States. And it goes back to 2020, and it's every 10 years. This is something I've talked about I know I've talked about it a handful of times. And it just, when you see the numbers and then you just directly correlate that to a lot of the problems we have in the country, it's impossible not to see the correlation. So starting back in 1920, the out-of-wedlock births were 3%. 1930, 4%, 4%, 4% for the next 30 years. And then 1960, it was 5%. So from 1920 to 1960, it went up 2%, from 3 to 5, okay? By the time it gets to 1980, it jumps to 18%, and then to 30%. In 1990, 33% in 2020, or in 2000, and then 2010, 41, it's leveled off at 41. So it jumped from 18 to 41 from basically my life, from 80 to 2010. 3% to 5% in the 40 years from 1920 to 1960, and it's jumped to 41%. It's impossible for me to look at this and then to overlay it with a lot of the issues we're having when it comes to education, when it comes to crime, when it comes to poverty, when it comes to all the things, add them all up. God ordained marriage. He ordained sex to be in marriage. So procreation takes place between a man and a woman in the sacrament of marriage. When we, through either our sinfulness or thinking that we're better than God, trying to make up our own rules, it always backfires. It always backfires. This is just one little stat. One little stat, but it's very telling. And every time I see it, or a different model of it, or a different version of it, and telling the same story, it's impossible for me not to see this and to be reinvigorated in my faith, and reinvigorated into the Ten Commandments, reinvigorated into the commandments that Jesus and the church give us. They give us these commandments so that we may live and live well, that we may have life and have it abundantly. It's like a parent telling a kid not to play with fire. The kid might want to play with fire. He might think it's fun, but the parent knows what's best. God knows what's best for us. And so often we try to rebel against him. So often we think we know better than God. And throughout generations and millennia, those, and this is what all the Proverbs say, and it's what all the wisdom literature says, those who stay with God and follow his commands will live happy lives. It just is, it's not rocket science. You don't need to reinvent this. The church has given us moral guidance for millennia. And those who stick with it, and is it easy? No. Is it easy? No, it's not. Oftentimes it's very arduous and very hard. But the fruit that comes from it, that comes from following the will of God, is evident all around us. We're going to head to a short break, and we'll be right back.
Support for programming provided by Iowa Beef Steakhouse, a true Iowa steakhouse utilizing products and produce from across the state. Family owned and operated since 1982, open for lunch Monday through Friday and dinner every night of the week. Learn more at iowabeefsteakhouse.com or on Facebook.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from Fitness by Design, your neighborhood fitness studio, located in Des Moines, offering PH or fitness classes, private and semi-private training, Beamer, and massage. Learn more at fitnessbyddesigndm.com, 515-770-3844.
Support for programming is provided by Construction Professionals, serving customers through a proven process, creating unique design, functionality, and artistic beauty. Construction Professionals is a Catholic family business built on a strong foundation. cpcustomhomes.com. Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from Mercy One. Live your best life with Mercy One. With Iowa's largest network of care locations, personalized care is right in your neighborhood. Schedule online at mercyone.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from First Heartland Financial Group consultant Scott Prickett, an independent financial firm offering personalized financial advice with your insurance and investments for all stages of life. 515-202-6218 or online at firstheartlandfinancialgroup.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the law offices of Amanda T. Adams. Catholic-owned and operated, Amanda offers comprehensive estate planning services, including living wills, trusts, and probate. Learn more at amandatadamsjdlaw.com.
Join me, Father Mike Mahoney, at the Next Man Up West Power Lunch, Friday, June 14th at St. Francis of Assisi in West Des Moines. I'll be sharing my journey to being a newly ordained priest for the Diocese of Des Moines. Program begins at noon and lunch provided by Chick-fil-A, iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for programming has been provided by Marr Security Services, a family-owned security company that provides full-service security solutions to homes and businesses throughout the Midwest. Learn more at permarsecurity.com. Thank you, Marr Security Services, for supporting Iowa Catholic Radio.
My help comes from you. You're right.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio, Part 4 of our Introduction to the Devout Life. If you have missed any of it, obviously go back onto the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get them. You should be able to listen to the first 3 episodes. Not necessary. You can still hopefully glean a lot out of what we're going to go through today, but help kind of build what we started with on the Devout Life. So it really started kind of broad base, trying to just enter into this idea of getting on the path of the Devout Life. And now we're getting granular, okay? And so if you've been with us, he's really getting practical on a lot of this stuff. And the most recent one now that we're going to be getting into is on how to maintain purity. St. Francis de Sales says, be exceedingly quick in turning aside from the slightest thing leading to impurity. For it is an evil which approaches stealthily, and in which the very smallest beginnings are apt to grow rapidly. It is always easier to fly from such evils than to cure them. It's wonderful advice, especially men. Today, obviously, men deal with impurity probably as much as it's probably one of the most ubiquitous sins that is said in the confessional, I'm sure. And this is great practical advice. Again, it's very practical. But when coming to impurity, again, man, how much we need advice like this today when impurity is all around us. You can't even walk to a gym without seeing impurity. Be exceedingly quick in turning aside from the slightest thing leading to impurity. It's an evil which approaches stealthily, and the very smallest beginnings are apt to grow rapidly. It is easier to fly from such evils than to cure them. So anytime you have these thoughts, anytime you have these inclinations, run away as quickly as possible. It's easier to run away than it is to fight them. Next, on poverty of spirit amid riches. This stuff is wonderful. Again, the opulence that we have living in America, the fact that you're probably listening to this either in a car, or on a radio, or in AirPods. We have riches. On living a life of poverty of spirit amid riches. He says, and this, my child, is what your heart should be. Open only to heaven, impenetrable to riches and earthly treasures. If you have them, keep your heart from attaching itself to them. Let it maintain a higher level, and amidst riches be as though you had none, that you are superior to them. Do not let that mind, which is the likeness of God, cleave to mere earthly goods. Let it always be raised above them and not sunk in them. So your heart should be open to heaven and penetrable to the riches of earthly treasures. If you have earthly treasures, great. That's a good thing. Awesome. But keep your heart from attaching itself to them. He goes on. There's a wide difference between having poison and being poisoned. All apothecaries, I can't pronounce the word, have poisons ready for special uses. But they are not consequently poisoned, because poison is only in their shop, not in themselves. And so you may possess riches without being poisoned by them, so long as they are in your house or purse only and not in your heart. I double underline this. It is the Christian's privilege to be rich in material things and poor in attachment to them, thereby having the use of riches in this world and the merit of poverty in the next. Beautiful. There's a wide difference between having poison and being poisoned. We can have riches. You can have a house. You can have an iPhone. You can have a car. You can have all these things and not be poisoned. Again, you can have them possessed. You can physically own these things, so long as they are in your house or in your purse only. He's talking about the poisons, and not in your heart. So long as you have, you can have an iPhone, you can have a car, you can have a TV, whatever, as long as that is not taking up space in a place that is designed for God. I love this. It's a Christian's privilege to be rich in material things and poor in attachment to them, thereby having use of riches in this world and the merit of poverty in the next. All right, how to exercise real poverty, although rich. And he says, and this we must do more earnestly than worldly men, for they look carefully after their poverty out of self-love, out of their property for self-love. We must work for the love of God. Now, self-love is restless, anxious, and over-eager love. And so work done on its behalf is troubled, vexatious, and unsatisfactory. Whereas the love of God is calm, peaceful, and tranquil. And so the work done for its sake, even in worldly things, is gentle, trustful, and quiet. So the actual work we do, right? We have to do work. Again, this book is written for people who are not in religious life. This is written for people in the laity, people who are out working. And so we must, even though we have possessions, we must earnestly do more than the worldly men who are attached to these possessions. He says we work for the love of God. Give your work to God, right? So we are all in the world working. We're doing something, whatever our state in life is that we have. We have to go to work. We have to provide for something. If we do it out of a love of God, that can bring us holiness. And it is the Opus Dei model. That's essentially what this is. This is saying it's working for the love of God, doing our daily work with the love of God. Okay. Furthermore, it is needful often to practice a real poverty amidst the riches with God has endowed you. If you are impoverished much or little by unforeseen events such as a storm, flood, fire, drought, theft, or lawsuit, then is the real time to practice poverty, accepting the loss quietly and adapting yourself patiently to your altered circumstances. Accepting what befalls you, like the book of Job. So I like this. This is a great reflection for all of us, that there are little trials that can come to us, these little poverties that we can take in. We should accept those. I don't know, we should be seeking them out necessarily, but accept them when they come to us. In the meantime, as you have riches, do not let them take over your heart. Be detached from them. Okay. Next part's on friendship. This is wonderful. I've talked often about the importance of real Christian friendships, and he does a much better job than I ever could have done. Have no friendship save with those whose intercourse is good and true, and the purer the bond which unites you, so much higher will your friendship be. If your intercourse is based on science, it is praiseworthy. Still more if it arises from participation in goodness, prudence, justice, and the like. But if the bond of your mutual liking be charity, devotion, and Christian perfection, God knows how precious a friendship it is. Precious because it comes from God, it tends to God, because God is the link that binds you, because it will last forever in Him. Awesome. Let's go. I'm going to do the whole thing over again. Have no friendship save those whose intercourse is good and true. And the purer the bond that unites you, so much higher will the friendship be. So if your intercourse is based on science, that is great. That is praiseworthy. That's wonderful. But still more of it arises from participation in goodness, prudence, and justice. So now we went from science to the virtues, to the cardinal virtues. If it's in the virtues, that's great. That's even better. Again, that's an Aristotelian friendship. Take it to the next level and say, no, I'm going to go beyond that, and I'm going to have my mutual friendship beyond charity, devotion, and Christian perfection. How wonderful that is. How godly that is. The next line after this is the one that I've quoted many times before. This is probably the first St. Francis de Sales quote I came across. Just as men traversing a plain have no need to hold one another up as they have who are amidst slippery mountain paths. So religious people in the religious life, monks and whatnot, do not need the stay of individual friendships nearly as much. But those who are living in the world require such for the strength and comfort amidst the difficulties which beset them. Monks don't need Christian friendships as much as people who are dealing with the problems of the world do, period. Surround yourself with strong Christian friendships. We need it for the journey. We need to be able to strengthen each other. On the flip side of this, false friendships. So, friendships that are not endowed by God, that are not circled around the faith, too often end in downright sin. But pure friendship is always the same, modest, courteous, and loving, knowing no change save an increasingly pure and perfect union, a type of the blessed friendship of heaven. It goes further on remedies against evil friendships. Never hearken to any indiscreet conversation whatsoever. Never mind if you seem rude or uncourteous in rejecting all such. So you're in a conversation with someone. Don't even if the conversation, I hear this all the time, right? This thing happens all the time. If the conversation is going down a path that you know is not of God, just get out of it. No matter how rude you seem, get out of it or change the conversation. It does not matter. There must be, this is St. Francis de Sales, there must be no dallying with an attachment to that which is incompatible with the love of God. True and living friendship cannot thrive amidst sin. I want to pause just right there. As I think about this idea of friendship, he puts a primacy on Christian friendship. I've seen it in my own life. As I surrounded myself more and more and more with people who are ardently striving for goodness, the easier it has become for me to live a life accordingly. It just is. The adage, you are the summation, or the average of your 5 closest friends, couldn't be more true. You are who you hang out with. You are who you associate with. And so I saw this clip online of some guy, I mean, it's pretty shallow. He was like driving some really fancy sports car, and this YouTube guy's going around asking him, hey, how did you get so rich? And he wants like 1-minute clips from these guys to see how they got so successful. As one guy said, for years I wanted to be a multi-bajillionaire or whatever, and I wasn't. And I realized that all the guys I hung out with were also in the same place I was, poor and broke and not motivated. He goes, I literally just changed my friend group, and all of a sudden I was successful. Again, that's very worldly example of this, but just change it to the spiritual life. If your 5 closest friends, if the people you're surrounding yourself with are not doing this, are not striving for holiness, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do that, to achieve what we're trying to do here in the devout life. On society and solitude, there is a profitable society, that of good devout people, and it will always be very good for you to meet with them. Vines grow amidst olive trees, are wont to bear rich grapes, and he who frequents the society of good people will imbibe some of their goodness. The bumblebee makes no honey alone, but if it falls among bees, it works with them. Our own devout life will be materially helped by intercourse with other devout souls. Furthermore, you should learn to have real material to have and like real material solitude. Not that I want you to fly to the desert like, and he names like 5 saints and hermits, but it is well for you to retire sometimes within your own chambers or garden, or wherever so you have to best recollect your mind and refresh your soul with good and holy thoughts and some spiritual readings. All right, pause it there. Surround yourself with good devout people, right? So we just talked about that. Even when you're surrounded by good devout people, even when you're working for God, you still need to find time to find solitude. We aren't all called to be hermits, got that, but in your life, when can you find time to go within your own chamber or garden or wherever you can to take time away and find solitude. Refresh your soul with good thoughts, spiritual reading. Next is on modesty and dress. Again, he gets super granular here. In every chapter, there's more and more and more. On this one, as to cleanliness, that it should be uniform, and we should never, if possible, let any part of our dress be soiled or stained. External seamlessness is a sort of indication of inward good order. Okay, what does that mean? He's saying that the way we dress, the way we look, our appearance, does show something of our good internal order. He goes further. For my part, I should like my devout man or woman to be the best dressed person in the company, but the least fine or splendid and the least adorned, as St. Peter says, with the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. All right, so let's break that down. This is something I've always kind of struggled with as I think about it. There is a level of all of us that should want to be. It's kind of like I said last week with the good name. Like, you want to have a good name. That's a good thing. Having a good reputation is a good thing. And bring others to Christ, right? You want a good reputation, right? But there's this delicate balance between being humble and being prideful in that, right? It's the same kind of thing here in modesty and dress. That we should, I love this. I want the devout man to be the best dressed person in the room, but the least fine or splendid and adorned. All right, so just looking really nice, but not being extravagant, right? So being really well dressed, but not being extravagant in your dress. I think there's a great exploration of this topic, I think, and hopefully, as society continues the degradation of the way we dress, the Catholic man, the Christian man, can kind of take this mantle of being well groomed, but not over the top, not being pompous with it. But holding themselves in high esteem. Anyway, I love that he goes into this level of how to live a devout life, and he talks about your dress. On slander, he who unjustly takes away his neighbor's good name is guilty of sin and is bound to make reparation according to the nature of his evil speaking, since no man can enter into heaven cumbered with stolen goods, and of all worldly possessions the most precious is a good name. Slander is a kind of murder. For we all have three lives: a spiritual life which depends upon the grace of God, a bodily life depending on the soul, and a civil life consisting in a good reputation. Sin deprives us of the first, which is the spiritual life, death of the second, which is the bodily life, and slander of the third, the civil life. Slander is a kind of murder. He goes further. My daughter, I entreat you to never speak evil of any, either directly or indirectly. Beware of ever unjustly imputing sins or faults of your neighbor, of needlessly disclosing his real faults, of exaggerating such are as overt, of attributing wrong motives to good actions, or denying the good that you know exists in another. So you talk about sins of omission and commission. Look at this. So right here he's saying that in addition to just not even speaking evil about another person, whether directly or indirectly, be aware of ever unjustly imputing the sins or faults of your neighbor, needlessly disclosing his real faults. So these are real faults of people, things that they've actually done. He goes, unless you have need to say these things, you shouldn't even do it. Again, it's the old adage of your parents, right? Like, unless you have something nice to say, don't say it at all. So you could be saying true things about a person, but still slandering them. How we talk about others and their reputation. And last time, how important is our goodwill, our name, our reputation? It's very important. And so unless there's a real reason to be disclosing these things or talking about this person, we ought to not do that. We ought not to do it. Again, I think it ties well into the friendship thing too, right? So if you're around people who all they do all day long is talk about other people behind their back, how much more likely are you going to be to stoop into that type of talk? All right, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. We are going to head to a short break, and we'll be right back.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from independent realtor Chris Foster. Chris has served clients with everything real estate throughout Iowa since 2019. 641-891-8178 or online at the 4saleia.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu. Mercy College of Health Sciences, mchs.edu.
Does your financial portfolio benefit from abortion, contraception, human cloning, or embryonic stem cell research? Knights of Columbus Asset Advisors offers investment products that are Catholic screened and designed for faith-based investors. Contact an advisor at 844-493-4010 or visit kfcassetadvisors.org to learn more about how you can seek to align your faith and finances. Knights of Columbus Asset Advisors is an SCC registered investment advisor. Investment products are not guaranteed and may lose value. Thank you, Advisor Gregory Waddle, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for programming provided by Iowa Beef Steakhouse, a true Iowa steakhouse utilizing products and produce from across the state. Family owned and operated since 1982, open for lunch Monday through Friday and dinner every night of the week. Learn more at iowabeefsteakhouse.com or on Facebook.
Iowa Catholic Radio would like to thank our business partner, Dino Storage, 2725 2nd Avenue in Des Moines, offering monthly rentals, indoor climate-controlled storage, and package delivery to your unit. Learn more at dinostorage.com.
From St. Charles to Pleasant Hill and everywhere at iowacatholicradio.com or the Iowa Catholic Radio app. Listener-supported Iowa Catholic Radio, connecting listeners to Christ.
My help comes from you. You're right here.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio, finishing this segment on the introduction to Devout Life. One more I wanted to hit on here because we do switch into basically part 4 next time of the way he has broken out. And so there's got one more that falls into this most recent kind of chapter part that we're on, which is on amusement and recreation. And I thought this was just so good. On what is allowable. Only one must avoid excess, either in the time given to them or the amount of interest they absorb. For if in too much time be given up to such things, they cease to be a recreation and become an occupation. And so far from resting and restoring the mind or the body, they have precisely the contrary effect. After 5 or 6 hours spent over chess, one's mind is spent and weary. And too long a time given to tennis will result in physical exhaustion. Or if you will play for high stakes, they may get anxious and decomposed, and in such unimportant objects are unworthy of so much care and thought. But, above all, beware of setting your heart upon such things, for however lawful an amusement may be, it is wrong to give one's heart up to it. A lot to take in. Break it down here a little bit. First off, amusements. He goes, these are fine things. Chess is a fine thing. Tennis, by the way, guilty. I looked it up. I'm like, wait a second. I didn't think tennis was even a sport in the 1500s. Apparently, it's been around since the 1200s, and in the 16th century is when they introduced rackets. So there you go. You learned something today. They used to just use their hands. They ended up using the rackets. It started in France. So I would say he was at least on the forefront of tennis, and I was kind of laughing when I saw that tennis was one of his examples. But 5 or 6 hours of playing chess, your mind would be spent and weary. Tennis, these are good things, chess, tennis, but if they're making you tired, if they're making you anxious, all these things, nothing of such unimportance in the spiritual life is worthy of so much care and thought. Okay, so he says, above all, whatever these things are, you're going to replace them with what the things are in your life that are the amusement and recreation. I can think of Netflix. I can think of YouTube. I can think of even podcasts and whatever the thing is. Sports is obviously the one I talk about the most here. Beware of setting your heart upon any of these things, for however lawful an amusement may be, it is wrong to give one's heart up to it. The spiritual life is more important than all of these things. And it's kind of a theme he's had in this book. There are many things which are permissible. They're not sinful by nature. But when they take up primacy over the place that God is supposed to have in your heart, where God is supposed to have, where your prayer life is supposed to be, where your spiritual life is supposed to be, when these things